All right, guys, you knew this video was coming eventually. Today, I am going to talk about the Cybertruck. If they're going to talk about it being an off-road vehicle, a camping vehicle, an exploring vehicle, all the kind of fun stuff we do here on this channel, I should probably talk about it with you guys and share some of my thoughts and opinions. And you guys can share some of your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think of this absolutely crazy vehicle from the mind of Elon Musk at Tesla. I like the Cybertruck, guys. I think it is pretty cool. If you haven't seen this thing, I don't know what you're doing. It's everywhere. It is hyped beyond hype. Every video ends up on trending from all the big channels reviewing them. I am not lucky enough to get a Cybertruck to review, but we can sure talk about it. I want to look at some of the specifications. I want to talk about some things that matter to me with an off-road camping vehicle. And if you're new here, this is the first time stopping by the channel, you found this video, my name is Casey and I upload new videos every week, off-roading, reviewing off-road related vehicles, installing mods and reviewing parts and camping and all that, accessories and all that kind of fun stuff. And we are trying to hit 100,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate it. Hit that little subscribe button. Let's get the channel to 100,000 subscribers. And let's talk about the Cybertruck today, guys. For you guys that don't know, I live in Canada. It is cold up here, and a lot of the places that I go off-roading are quite rural. They aren't filled with Tesla superchargers or whatever it is you use to charge. So that's the first thing that really comes to my mind, big reservation with the Cybertruck. The second one is, how am I gonna mod this thing? I like to mod my vehicles. Definitely I wanna take a look at some of the mods available. So what are gonna be my options for aftermarket mods? That's gonna be the second thing I wanna take a look at and see if that's even viable. Can we buy one of these and can we mod it? Can we put a rooftop tent on it? Can we put some big tires on it? I wanna talk about how we're gonna carry around a spare tire in the Cybertruck. We'll talk a little bit about the dimensions, and I wanna compare it to some of the other competitors out there in the EV off-road truck utility market. So like the Rivian, it sounds like a sparkling water. The Rivian R1T, that I think is probably the strongest competitor to the Cybertruck and looks nothing like the Cybertruck. There's also the new Ford Lightning, which is on its way out. And then we'll just kind of compare it a little bit to the Jeep Gladiator because, well, that's what we drive. We have a Jeep Gladiator. And how I think it will work up here in Canada in the mud, in the snow, in the rain, and the crazy weather that we're always out there off-roading in, and I really enjoy. So that is super important. And then we'll just kind of, as I said, look at some of the other vehicles, but I want to compare with their range and some of the options available to them, how far they can go on a charge versus the Cybertruck. And then I want to talk a little bit about charging. Let's get into it. Okay, here we are at Tesla.com. This is the Canadian version, and this right here, what we're looking at, look at this thing, guys. This is a Cybertruck. Like, I can't believe they actually made this. This is absolutely bonkers. Now, let's just flip through and I'll share some of my thoughts as we kind of scroll through the website. And maybe we'll come back here at the end. There's an order now button and doesn't cost much to put a deposit on and it's fully refundable. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, this thing looks like it's ready to go to Mars. Tesla is talking about the Cybertruck being off-road capable. There's no hiding it. This is what it's meant for. Like, look at this. We got a video right here of it off-roading. This is the kind of stuff I do. This is where we go. So I have not heard of any Cybertrucks in Canada. I'm really curious how they're handling the cold weather. We've got lots of video clips of the truck going through dirt and mud and fording water, drifting it looks like, in some cold scenes. Built for any planet. I mean, I guess that's BC. British Columbia has all of these. This looks like it could be filmed here. So it's durable and rugged enough to go anywhere. That's kind of what they're toting, and a ton of range and a ton of ground clearance, which I'll talk about in a second because there's something that I've kind of noticed, and not a lot of people are talking about why this will be pretty cool for off-roading. We all know about the famous the famous incident smashing the glass on the Cybertruck. Now, it comes with no paint. The whole thing is like stainless steel, so that should be great in our crazy overgrown trails here in British Columbia. The famous BC pinstriping. I don't know, maybe it'll scratch up the stainless steel on the sides of it, but that's kind of cool. Shatter resistant, we all know the story of that. When they tried to demo it, it totally wasn't shatter resistant. It was a problem. But that's kind of neat. Like if rocks are hitting the windows, things like that, that would be really helpful to not have front window damage like my Jeep that seems to get a rock chip every time I drive it. So we've got Tesla. They're talking about all kinds of uses for this. It's a work truck. It's an off-road truck. It's, here we go, a camping truck. Look at all this stuff. I mean, this person actually probably brings more junk than I bring when I go overlanding. Now, the nice thing about the Tesla is it has a 6-foot bed. It's 6 foot by 4 foot, which from what I can tell, it seems to be longer than most of the other trucks in this space, the Rivian R1T and the Ford Lightning. So that's great. And it's longer than my Jeep Wrangler's bed. So full 6-foot bed, pretty slick. What else we got here? We've got some accessories. Now I'll talk about some accessories a little later in the video. I want to check out this cool website that has all kinds of aftermarket accessories. There's lots of lockable space. It has this crazy sliding thing that goes over the bed. There you can see a picture of it here, just between the two images as they transition. All the gear that's inside, and then there's a little button on the side of the bed that you hit, and it rolls like a shutter down and secures everything. But look at this image. This is spectacular. Here is our Cybertruck into the wild with 547 kilometers of range on a single charge. Now that does vary quite a bit depending on which model you select. And for you guys, my friends down in the United States, that is about 249 miles. But you can, there's like 3 models of the Cybertruck. You can get anywhere from 402 kilometers to 515 kilometers with the Cyber Beast, which is that's what they're calling, of course, right? The big bad model, Cyber Beast. Yeah. So that's like between 249 and 320 miles. Now Tesla does offer an extender, which really has my interests piqued, because that would really be a significant amount of range. We're talking about 515, actually, sorry, let me back up. 515 kilometers is with the Cyber Beast, which actually has less range than the, I believe it's the dual motor, the model down, which has 547 kilometers. So I don't think I would consider ordering the Cyber Beast. It's probably just overkill. It's a lot of extra money. I would go with the dual motor model with the longer range. 547 kilometers is quite a significant amount of range, even for what I do. But if you can add that battery on, the range extender, which is another 190 kilometers, which I'm going to say is probably about 120 miles, that is getting up there. You're talking, you know, 800, 5, 6, 7, can I do math? Over 700 kilometers? Yeah, over 700 kilometers. Now, I'll show you in a second how that range extender works, because it takes up your bed space. And I want to talk about the spare tire, because I cannot go off-roading without a spare tire, guys. That is essential anywhere I go. I don't want to have a flat, especially with this crazy truck. It's probably got some special rims and whatever. Definitely got to carry a spare tire around. And that is a big problem even with my Gladiator, because I have large, oversized 40-inch tires. It is, you know, where do I put the spare tire? I got to carry it around in the bed as well. Now, the cool thing about the Cybertruck here that we see is that it has 120 volt and 240 volt outlets in the bed. So that's great for camping and overlanding. We can power lots of gear. I'm assuming this draws off the battery in the truck itself. So we could run whatever lights and heaters and whatever we need at camp to keep us going. We could even run like electric stoves and inductive cooktops, all that kind of stuff. So we don't have to bring any fuel at all, which has been a big goal of mine with camping and using some of like the EcoFlow products, is trying to get rid of consumables and just bring one thing that can power everything and have everything run off electricity. So this is cool. That would be super slick to have. Just be able to plug whatever I want into the back. Now, I don't know where we'd put a rooftop tent on this thing. We're gonna have to look at some of the aftermarket accessories. I love that Tesla just kind of totes this as dopamine on tap. Go 0 to 60 is 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 60 miles per hour. Sorry, I'm just looking around my camera here. 2.7 seconds, which is faster than my Demonator. So when I mentioned my Gladiator has a supercharged Hemi, it has 840 horsepower, and you can go 0 to 60 in like under 4 seconds with 40-inch tires. So I'd be curious, what can the Cybertruck do if we put 40-inch tires? If that is even possible. We're gonna have to look at these mods here in a minute. So super basic interior, which I can't complain about. I do like the modern minimalist feel that the Cybertruck has on the inside, and that cool squared steering wheel on top and bottom. Bioweapon defense mode. Of course, Tesla has to call everything something crazy and over the top. Now, this is kind of neat. This would be super cool off-roading. I'm not gonna lie. Having an entire glass roof, being able to see all the trees and mountains and sky, and bring you guys along with the camera and just, you know, point it wherever I want and look at stuff all around. Definitely, that's cool. Now here we are once again camping. Looks like we've kind of solved the tent problem. I don't know. I don't think I'd want to set a tent up in the bed. Then you have to take all your cargo out. So to me, I don't know. I'd rather have something where we can use that cool shutter system, that how it covers all your cargo, and then have some sort of accessory bars or rack or something that I can put a rooftop tent on. But it kind of solves the big problem that I have with my Gladiator, is I can't bring any gear with me because I need something to protect all the gear that I put in the back of the trunk. So I need some sort of cap to protect all of the cargo and gear that I bring. Where the Cybertruck has that already, it just closes and stores everything inside. So really all I need is, or would need, is some sort of rack that goes on the top of the bed, and then we can put a rooftop tent. I want to see one of these Cybertrucks with a rooftop tent on them. I'm guessing we're probably not too far away from seeing something like that. So Cybertruck has lots of crazy lights. It's got this base camp kit that comfortably fits 2 adults and pumps up in a few minutes. I'd like to see that. I just wouldn't want to have to unload all my gear to be able to do it. Now here's what I'm talking about with the spare tire and with the range extender. So there is no tire carrier option. We've got the tire basically in the bed of the truck. So if we're going off-roading, we're gonna use up 3 feet of that 6-foot bed, 3 feet, because we're gonna probably wanna try to put 37-inch tires on here, but we're gonna use 3 feet or half of that bed up right away by putting a spare tire in here. And then we have another image with the range extenders. So here is the extra battery. This says, the math doesn't seem to add up between some of the information that's on their site with the extra 190 kilometers. But we've got offering up to 755 kilometers of range. That's pretty significant. Honestly, at that point, I think that I could probably drive to where I want to go, do a bunch of off-roading, and drive home and probably never have to charge, or very infrequently have to charge. Now, the one thing that's been running around in my mind, and this is definitely something that happens with my diesel Jeep as well as my V8 Jeep, is as soon as you go off-roading, range goes way down. So while I get decent fuel economy with the diesel on the road, and actually surprisingly decent fuel economy with the supercharged Hemi on the road and highway, as soon as I hit the trail, the range goes down big time. And then also when you put larger tires on, maybe you lift it a little bit, it's not gonna be so aerodynamic, because this thing looks like it's built for aerodynamics, the way it's shaped like a 1980s video game. It's gonna go down. So that's something else to think. We've got 750 kilometers, we've used up our bed, maybe the other 3 feet, we can just put a spare tire in there, and that's it. We're not really gonna be able to carry too much gear around in the back if we wanna get maximum range and be able to accommodate having a flat tire somewhere along the line in our adventures. So we'll see. What kind of range does it get off-road? What kind of range does it get with larger tires, lifts, start putting stuff on top? I know I get quite a bit less fuel economy when I have a rooftop tent on one of my Jeeps. It just adds more drag, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, if we got to put a giant battery pack in this, carry a spare tire around, we've got no room for gear, we're gonna have to shove it all in the back seat, which seems to have quite a bit of room with the way the seats flip up. I'll see if I can find an image somewhere along the line and reference that comment here in a minute. But what kind of range are we gonna get? And then the cold. Like I said earlier, guys, I live in Canada and I love to go camping in the shoulder seasons, the spring and fall, but even more, go camping in the winter when it's cold. And from what I've seen, the EVs tend to have a range decrease in the cold. I'll have to do a little bit of research, but from what I initially looked at, it can be upwards of like 30% depending on how cold it is. So, okay, we've got to add a battery to get it to 755 kilometers of range. We're going to add bigger tires, so that's probably going to reduce the range. We're going to throw a rooftop tent on it. That's going to reduce the aerodynamic efficiency. That's going to reduce the range again. And then we're going to be out in the winter and it's going to be cold. And so what are we going to get? Like 500 kilometers? I think that's still something that could be considered reasonable. And we're not always going to be out when it's super cold. Maybe we don't have to put this range extender on. Maybe we can just add a spare tire in the back and bring a bunch of gear and it's okay. I don't want to sound like it's totally negative and all of this is just going to throw this out the door. But I want to be a little bit real in some of the variations and possibilities that could occur, especially if you guys are considering buying a Cybertruck, which might be why you're watching this video. The Cybertruck is fast, as we mentioned before. It boots 0 to 100 or 0 to 160 or 0 to 60 in like 2.7 seconds. It's got huge range. Now let's talk about the size and some of the other kind of coolness with having an EV truck. So overall, the Cybertruck, let me read out some of these stats for you so you get an idea of just how big it compares to other vehicles. And it's actually surprising how big it actually is. I'm going to talk in inches here because it just kind of makes more sense than all the millimeters that everybody's putting on their websites. It's 223 inches in length from bumper to bumper. Now the Rivian R1T is 217 inches. The Ford Lightning, which is like the electric F-150, everybody's favorite truck apparently, is 232 inches, so it's a little bit longer, so even longer than the Cybertruck. How does that compare against the Gladiator? Now I do find the Gladiator a little bit too long compared to a Wrangler, but the Gladiator is 218 inches. So the Cybertruck is only about 5 inches longer than the Gladiator itself. So that's actually not that much bigger than a Gladiator, to be honest. Height-wise, it is actually lower than a stock Rubicon at the top, at the roof. It's 70 inches tall, where a Rubicon Gladiator is 75 inches in height. Now, that's quite a bit lower than the Ford Lightning, which is 78 inches, and the Rivian R1T, which is 78.2 inches. So that's going to be really handy if you got a rooftop tent and then you've got a nice low center of gravity. It's going to be pretty stable feeling off-road as well. You're going to be able to tuck in under branches and stuff like that where we're off-roading here in British Columbia. Now, the width. I thought the Cybertruck was going to be way wider. Now, they say it's 86 inches wide with the mirrors folded in. There's kind of a cool trick, though, with the Cybertruck. It is designed to not have mirrors. Now, whether or not you can get away with running it or driving it around in your province or state or wherever you are without mirrors, but I'm going to guess some of that is going to change over time. It has a camera system on the sides that shows you what your side view mirrors would. I don't know actually where it displays it on the inside, but you can take the mirrors off and use the cameras as side view mirrors. But with them folded in, it is 86 inches wide. Now, compared to a Jeep is 77 inches wide. So it's about 9 inches wider than a Jeep Wrangler or Gladiator. They're both the same width with their mirrors. So it's going to be a little bit wider. It's also got a fuller body, where a Jeep has that narrow tuck in the sides, and then the fender flares extend out over the wheels. But compared to the Rivian R1T, it is a little wider as well. The Rivian R1T is 81.8 inches, so about 4.5 inches, 4.2 inches wider. And compared to the Ford Lightning, which is 83 inches, it's going to be about 3 inches wider. So I really think where the Cybertruck shines is going to be that you can take those mirrors off and probably shave some of that width off. But what's really cool about the Cybertruck, it's ground clearance, guys, because it's ground clearance from the factory with the factory wheels, all that fun stuff, is 17 inches. The Jeep Gladiator Rubicon has 11.1 inches of ground clearance. So that is, what, 5.9 inches more ground clearance? And it's more than the Rivian R1T, which has 14.9 inches of ground clearance, and it blows the Ford Lightning out of the water, which has 8.4 inches of ground clearance for the Lariat model. Scroll up all the way to the top. There, this is the shot I want to show you guys. Look at underneath of this, okay? So this is, there's no axle. That is the big issue with combustion engine vehicles that have solid axles, or even if you have that crazy other type of suspension. You know what I'm talking about, Toyota guys. IFS, an independent front suspension. Even with any of that, you're not going to get the same kind of ground clearance. I don't think I can find, or I couldn't find a shot of the underneath, like looking up at it, but my understanding is the bottom is completely flat. It's got a bit of a skid plate system on it to protect the batteries. There's no axle going through there. It is literally the bottom of the Cybertruck is the ground clearance. So you've got no big pumpkin, the middle of your differential to hang you up on obstacles. The wheels are just like attached to the motors on the sides, which is super cool. That is probably like one of the most common places that I get hung up off-roading is part of my axle or the diff or something. The rest of it just kind of, makes its way over, because if you can clear it with your diffs, the rest is pretty good. So that is super cool. Now, when I said 17 inches earlier, that is what Tesla's calling is for extract mode. So what is extract mode? Well, the Cybertruck goes up and down. So if you're stuck, you can actually lift the Cybertruck up. You can push a button. I don't know if it's hydraulics or air shocks or whatever, but it will raise itself up and get you unstuck. 17 inches of ground clearance. Extract mode. How cool is that? All right. Now, we talked about the off-road capabilities. I want to just talk about a couple other things that I think may or may not be a problem for me in what I'm doing. The technology, the buttons, all that kind of stuff. Everything is like push, tap buttons. They're not not big, fat, meaty buttons that I can use with my gloves and it's cold and my hands are wet and all that kind of stuff. You even have to push like a capacitive touch button on the side to pop the door open. Let's put a clip up here of some YouTuber doing it, like NKBHD or something. You have to push on the side of the door pillar to pop the door out. So how's that going to work? They say it's going to be able to pop the door open if it's like covered in ice and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you had some freezing rain, but what if it's covered in mud or whatever? Now I got to be trying to get that button to work or wiping it off. I don't know. That might be a problem. Same with like the touch button on the back to open that thing that goes up, the tonneau cover. I don't want to call it. I was trying to come up with a different name. It's a tonneau cover, but it's like a shutter. It rolls up and in, all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of worried about some of that. Inside the vehicle, everything seems to be touch screen and it's a screen and you got to, I don't know. I am not a fan of touch things. That's one of my concerns with the Cybertruck. The other is it relies a lot on cameras. So there's cameras kind of all over the place. In the back, you can't see out the rear at all when you have the tonneau cover closed. So there's cameras in the back. Those are always getting dirty on my Jeep. I imagine it's going to be a problem. Other than that, I think we should take a look at some of the mods because, yeah, Cybertruck's kind of cool. It's pretty neat. But wait till you see some of the mods that this first company that's come out. This is called Unplugged Performance. I guess they make a lot of aftermarket stuff for Teslas already. And of course, they've got Cybertruck stuff. Now look at this, guys. This is called the Cybertruck Up Invincible 2.5-inch lift kit. Now, the price tag on this, and I'm going to assume this is in US dollars because it's probably a US website, is 10 grand. That's 10 grand for a 2.5-inch lift. But look at that. Look at this thing. That is cool. I would love to take that off-roading. That would look so mean driving down the road. I think that's what the Cybertruck needs is some big, meaty off-road tires and wheels. But that's gonna definitely impact your range for sure. I don't know how much this is gonna reduce the range, but I can imagine it's definitely going to have an impact. That's 10 grand though for 2.5 inches of lift. Now, that's going to give you that 19.5 inches of ground clearance now of that full flat belly system on this electric. It's an electric truck. It's got no engine. Full 19.5 inches from front to back other than where your wheels are basically. That's going to improve your breakover angle, your departure angle, and your approach angle. I don't know what that includes. That's pretty hefty, 10 grand. That's going to be like 15 grand by the time I get up here in Canada. But it looks like they're doing a lot of billet and CNC stuff with that 26-piece kit. Pretty cool. So here we go. We got some pictures right here. We got, looks like some control arms on the front and the back, all very billet-y looking, pretty cool. 10 grand, that's serious bucks. So, but there's definitely, there's some other cool mods here. We've got this rear bumper. Here's an option to put I don't know why it's not changing, spare tire on the back. So maybe there's our answer to the spare tire. Look at this thing. This thing is absolute monster. It's 4 grand US, but there you go. Yet, oh, here's a picture of the underbody, guys. So here's an actual underbody photo of the Cybertruck. They're selling a upgraded skid plate system. Look at that. So You can protect the whole belly, all the underneath, but you can see what I'm talking about. Everything is flat. There's nothing underneath there to get hung up on anything, and nothing hanging down low to catch on anything as you go. I'm guessing if they're mounting racks like this, it won't be long before we see one that just levels it out and we can put a rooftop tent on the back. I can't wait to see the first Cybertruck with a rooftop tent. Now, these aftermarket accessories definitely aren't cheap. I'm gonna guess if I started buying a bunch of this stuff, I'd burn up 30K pretty quick, which is a pretty significant ratio of the total cost of a Cybertruck. But, you know, Jeeps aren't cheap either. So they've got kind of other cool accessories, light bars, of course, because if you're going to go overlanding, you got to have some light bars, upgraded brakes, and some aftermarket wheels. All really cool. There's definitely going to be a market for aftermarket. Of course, aftermarket, it's a market itself. There's going to be a huge market for parts to bolt onto these Cybertrucks. They're going to be popular. They're going to be all over the place. And it looks like you can get some sort of cargo system, and this is pretty cool. It's got some shelves and drawers, and you know, we see this with other truck aftermarket companies, but it's going to add weight to it. All this stuff is going to add weight, so that's going to reduce the range once again. And this is where I come back to range anxiety. So that means I got to be able to charge this thing all over the place. I was really like worried that this would be a huge problem. When I initially Googled Tesla superchargers in British Columbia, this is generally where I off-road on the island. Like, there's no superchargers up past sort of the lower third of the island. I don't want to be part of that. They're very focused around the Vancouver area, but definitely some big gaps in areas that I would go off-roading, and there's no superchargers. Now, the superchargers, from what I learned, because I didn't know much about EVs and charging and all that kind of stuff, are the fastest way to charge. Now, thankfully for me, I live in British Columbia, and our electric company, BC Hydro, publishes this awesome map of all of the EV chargers that you can get access to in our province. Well, actually, it looks like more than just our province. And this has really kind of changed my perspective on being worried about range, because now we've got chargers. Look at this. We've got them everywhere. Now, maybe you guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm slowly learning about EVs. My understanding is, if, let's just say we want to go up to Gold River. This is where we were a few weeks ago out on an adventure. This is pretty rural. This is a very small town. There's not much in it. They have a 50 kilowatt, whatever this is, CHAdeMO charger. Yeah, you guys are going to rip me up in the comments for that. Most in and out trips where we would leave a fuel station, come back to a fuel station, are less than 300 kilometers. And if at all, I would love to see this information when somebody buys a Cybertruck and starts off-roading it. What is the range like off-road? Are we taking the same kind of hit we are with internal combustion engines when we hit off-road trails and the range goes way down? Is that going to be the same with electrics, or are they just not going to care? Are they just going to have the same kind of performance when you're out off-roading? That I am super interested about. I don't feel like a Rivian R1T or a Ford Lightning is going to be something that I can go the places I want to go with. Jeep is not anytime soon releasing a full EV vehicle. There may be a 4xe Gladiator coming in the future from what I've heard. But the Cybertruck is ticking a lot of boxes, guys. It's got great ground clearance. It's going to be super rugged and durable. It's got a few drawbacks with all the technology and things that could break on it. That's what the warranty is for. So I think I'm going to do what I didn't think I was going to do, and I'm going to put a deposit down on a Cybertruck.